On today's Locked On Thunder podcast, Joel Lorenzi joins us to break down the NBA win totals for the Western Conference. Who will surprise? Who will disappoint? What's the over-under for the Oklahoma City Thunder?
You are Locked On Thunder, your daily Oklahoma City Thunder podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Let's get it going on the Locked On Thunder podcast on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. I am your host, media member, and beat writer for InsideTheThunder.com, Thunder on SI, Rylan Stiles. Follow me on Twitter at Rylan_Stiles. Follow the show on Twitter at LO ThunderPod. Joining me today is Joel Lorenzi at JX Lorenzi on Twitter, the Oklahoman beat writer. Joel, we're in the dead of the offseason right now. There's only a month left of the offseason, but it's never been more barren than it is right now.
Yeah, who you telling? The biggest news right now is that you cut your hair. I mean, how many people have seen this? I hadn't seen this till now. This is my first time seeing it. I feel like Rylan Stiles' muse. I want to tell the world about this. This is a development.
You can break the news on Twitter. This is the first pod with the new hair, so you're a part of it, Joel. You're a part of history.
I feel honored.
You're a part of history, and it could be the final ever time. The last pod could be the final ever time that I have long hair. So I'm thinking about hanging it up that side of my life. So it's a lot to decide upon. But the hair is highly questionable to come back. But isn't it always at this age? But Joel, you have a great head of hair yourself, and we've been trying to think of topics and ideas to discuss as we ramp forward here with what will be a fun season and what will be a season in which we're not scrapping and clawing for things to talk about once it begins, because there's so much pressure on this season, which is why you and I have some great plans ahead for this season. But why not just take a look around the NBA this week and around the NBA next week, talking about NBA win totals, producing our over-unders from around the NBA, with this week's focus being on the Western Conference. So, Joel, we'll start bottom to top and give our over-unders on these Western Conference teams. Let's get started with the Portland Trailblazers. 21.5 wins in a year in which they should be really interested in Cooper Flagler. What is your prediction for the Portland Trailblazers?
Yeah, even still with the interest in Cooper, I think they could be in that range and still end up in last place. There are some taxes you got to figure out here. Just as far as their record, I think they'll be obviously bad, but they'll be more fun than they were a year ago. I think guys, that competitive edge kind of drive that you can account for at least a couple more wins when a team is young and fun, even if they're not really good. So maybe add a win or two there because of that. I think I want to go over, but that's just like to say like 22 or 23 wins, which could still very well end up being dead last in the conference show.
Yeah, first of all, I meant to say Cooper Flag. I've always been doing this now with Cooper Flagler, Adam Flagler, but Cooper Flag.
You said Flagler?
Yeah, that's.
Oh,
I did that. I did that on Down the Dunk as well. Flagler is, of course, the two-way player for the Thunder. Cooper Flag.
Thunder. You're too.
I know. I did that on Down the Dunk. I did that now on this show. But we're going to get better and improve. It's off season for everybody, Joel. We're looking right now to improve our game. We're working on things like pronunciation. So. We'll get there eventually. We all can't be as great as the Joel Lorenzi from the Oklahoman. But I think that you're right that the Trailblazers could walk a very good line of taking a step forward, looking more complete, even hitting their win total, and still being in prime position to, get the lottery balls bouncing their way. And with the new flattened system, it's not necessarily as important to be the worst team in basketball. You want to be in that top three. But even if you're not, I mean, we've seen teams countless times since this new format's been put in place, leap up and get the top pick. And so with that being said, I really like some of Portland's pieces. I think that it's a slight over as well. Like it could just be by one game, but I think that they barely hit the over. A combination of capitalizing on those games you play versus the bottom of the East, and capitalizing on some of the games you play against veteran-laden squads who don't take you seriously, and it culminates into hitting the over on their very low win total. Again, all these win totals brought to you by our good friends over at FanDuel. So I would agree with you there on Portland. I think that the most interesting over-under right here, and perhaps it's only interesting to me, is the Utah Jazz, because I could see the Utah Jazz going in a variety of ways. Really, they should be focusing on improving their draft pick and going all in on getting Cooper Flag. Of course, they owe the Thunder a top 10 protected pick. I don't think either one of us see that conveying to the Thunder at all with any chance to do so. But how soon do they pull the plug on things? Because right now, you can make the argument that they're a very spunky, very fun team capable of winning games, which lowers your chances of leaping up into the lottery. So with their over-under set right now at 29 and a half, I should say, 29 and a half with Lauri Markkanen back in the fold, what do you make of the Utah Jazz?
Yeah, well, they won more than that last year. I do think there's certain things. The West is going to be even more of a bloodbath, I think, this year than it was last year. You got to include the Grizzlies. That's going to change some win totals for teams because they were almost a free dub last year. The thing with the Jazz is they've had this period, like in these last few years, where they kind of don't know which direction they're going, where they've had big stretches of like, oh, can this be a competent team? I don't doubt that they could pull something together like that this year while trying to decide. I mean, they should know the direction they want to go, but clearly they're maybe divided internally. And so I think they could, again, win 30 games, let's say, which would be the over. Like, I'm not taking a resounding over, but I think they could. I don't think they should, but I can see it happening, kind of like with some of the things you're saying and the direction they've, been pulled one way and pulled the other way in a season in years past. Like, I could just see it unfolding. Now, they should be at the under. They should be trying to lose more games than the Blazers. It wouldn't be possible to lose more games than the Blazers, I don't think. I think there's just a gap between those teams, but,
I think that when you look at Utah, the thing that worries me about them even hitting last year's win total is that they lost a lot defensively. And defense is part of what allows some of these lower level teams, tanking teams, to pull off upsets. I mean, you can look at the Thunder whenever they were going through their rebuild, and they were only winning 24 or so games, but they played such good defense that it allowed them to, sneak up on some teams and beat them on any given night. The Utah Jazz don't necessarily have those level defenders anymore to do that, and I just have to imagine that Danny Ainge, like, if we can see how obvious this should be for them, surely he can see it as someone who's renowned as one of the best executives in the NBA. I'm going to go under on Utah, but I don't love it. If I was genuinely betting, I would not touch the Utah Jazz because I could seriously see it going either way.
Yeah, and I think their win total, regardless, there's probably like a 4-ish, at least a 4-ish game difference between them and probably the Blazers, who are presumably at the bottom. So,
and then whenever you look at the next team on board, now we start to get really fun because I think that those are the two teams that you could just see no pathway, period, to make any sort of postseason run. The Spurs are the first team where it's iffy, but I think that most of people do not believe that they can get to the play-in tournament. But they have made some very interesting moves this offseason. They have Chris Paul. They have Harrison Barnes. They drafted Harrison Ingram, who I love. They have Victor Wembanyama, of course, at the very top, head of the snake. The Spurs win total is 36.5. We've seen Chris Paul before take a team not projected to make the postseason and get them there in Oklahoma City. I don't think he has that in him, though, this time around. I think that the Spurs will be improved. I think that they'll be a lot of fun to watch. But in the West, like, if you want to make the postseason, forgetting about making it to your ultimate goal, just getting into the top 10 spots, there are very few teams that you can take advantage of. There are very few teams that you can, kind of pencil in as a W. It's the Trailblazers, it's the Jazz, and it's got to be the Spurs. Like, at this point, if you're the Clippers, if you're the Lakers, if you're the Rockets, if you're the Warriors, you have to take advantage of these teams down here to where I think that there'll be a unique level of focus against teams like this that could propel the Spurs win total to be lower than 36.5. But by the same token, they're very talented. So which way are you going on the Spurs?
Yeah, this is the one I wouldn't touch because it's just so much mystery. I know my guys at ESPN have them like closer to the middle than before. But to be fair, I mean, they won 22 games last year. 36 games is closer to the middle by a good margin. I'm gonna take under. I think they can win around, and again, this is not like well below the total. I think they end up winning like 34 or 35, something like that. I think a lot of these teams are not gonna have like gaudy records. Like a lot of the middle to the lower top tier is going to be almost blended together. You're going to see teams trade places a lot throughout the year in the standings. I think 34 is more than fair. Like that's something to leave your hat on in the second year of the Wemby era. So I don't have them so close to the middle that they're winning like 40 games, but 34 I think is respectable for where they are. So
I would agree with that. I would think that they're going to hit the under on this win total, but it's going to be by product of nobody's going to have some insane record that's just unbelievable. So like everyone's going to beat up on everybody, and they're just going to be someone who draws the short end of that stick, and that's okay. Like I think they're going to be the most fun bad team to watch. I think that at the end of the season, when you look at all the teams that were quote unquote bad record wise, they're by far the most fun team to enjoy night in and night out. They just got the tough end of the stick of playing in the Western Conference. They hit the drawing board next off season and try to make their step forward after that. Now, Joel, I think that we've gotten all the teams out of the way who would not have a shred of disappointment if they missed the postseason, but there's still too many teams for the amount of spots you have left. So coming up, which team will end in disappointment and not make the postseason in the West? We'll talk about that and continue over-unders coming up. But first, I want to say right now about our good friends over at FanDuel. Folks, FanDuel is America's #1 sports book. They're also our proud sponsor who's giving us all these over-unders for the NBA season. And it's time. Sports are back. College football's began. The NFL begins this week. Well, there's something a little different for you at FanDuel. Right now, through September 22nd, all FanDuel customers can get a free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket on YouTube and the YouTube TV app by placing a $5 bet and get a free week of NFL Sunday Ticket to watch every single regular season game Sunday afternoons out of market. So go there right now, FanDuel.com, America's #1 sportsbook. And again, you can bet on college football. You can bet on the NFL. You can bet on the NBA still. If this is the only sport that you feel comfortable betting on, well, you can do over-unders as we're doing right now. You can bet on who's going to win the MVP. But in Thursday night's NFL opener, the Chiefs are 3-point favorites in Arrowhead to defend their Super Bowl championship. So go there right now to FanDuel.com and get started today at FanDuel. We're back on the Oklahoma City Thunder Lockdown Thunder podcast with our good friend, Joel Lorenzi, the Oklahoman beat writer, the man, the myth, the legend. Joel, we're continuing over-unders. We've gotten the Jazz and the Blazers and the Spurs out of the way. Is it fair to say that everybody left, they will end April bitter and disappointed if they're not at least in the play-in tournament?
yeah, I think those are all the teams remaining that are, either within arm's reach of playoff contention or are for sure in playoff contention. I mean, you got probably as many teams as I can remember as a basketball viewer that could, compete for a spot in the playoffs. So, well, obviously the play-in didn't exist when we were younger, but my point still stands.
Yeah, and like teams that feel like they if everything breaks right for them, that there's a legitimate chance to have something special happen for them this season, that leaves 12 teams for 10 spots. And it's going to be interesting to see who comes out on top in all this. The next team up on the over-under is the LA Clippers. 40.5 for the Clippers is the over-under. They've lost some this offseason, obviously. Paul George no longer there. They've brought in Derrick Jones Jr. They're building this thing around Kawhi, who is always a question mark, but did play a lot last year. Where are you at with the Clippers?
It's tough to say because I think the conversation has gotten to a point where maybe we're like crushing them a little too much. They don't have a sound nucleus like that. Obviously, what they got going on is questionable. I'm as big a Kawhi guy as anybody historically, but I can't really defend him anymore, at least not extensively. And so, I think again, I think if they were to hit the over, it would be 41. But I'm taking the under, and it's going to be 40. I think there's going to be a gap between them and that those last three teams. But I think while they are going to get some wins off, I think of the middle and the top, and they're going to be in that 40-win range. I don't think they're really going to be super competitive. Like they're going to be in playing range for sure. I don't think they're a big surprise, but I think they are better than people are talking about them, which is like obviously you see on the odds, they're right next to the Spurs. I think there's a gap there still for sure. Like I just think the conversation has gotten to a point where you want to defend them, but you know they're still in that range.
Yeah, I think that the Clippers, it's going to be interesting to see who does not make the play-in tournament. We'll get to that after we clear, let's say, the Kings and Suns. But when you look at the Clippers, this is an interesting win total because there's comes with an inherent risk in either direction of Kawhi Leonard. So if you pick the under and Kawhi plays at the amount of games he played last year, which is like 66, then you've lost your money. I think that if he plays 66, they're going to win more than 40 because they still have him, they still have Harden.
No doubt. Yeah, no doubt.
But if he doesn't, you've automatically lost because I think that Harden, while he's been awesome in his career, no doubt about that, and he's been someone who raises win total floors throughout his career. You know, Father Time's undefeated, and I just think that there's only so much he can do as a lone wolf out there. And like we saw Derrick Jones Jr. last year play incredible basketball next to Luka Doncic. James Harden brings of course, some of that gravity, but can he replicate that? This is just a team that is very awkwardly put together that I worry about heavily, and it's another stay away team for me in terms of if you should bet with conviction on this squad. It'll be very top notch for Thunder fans to follow. I mean, this is going to be team 1B for Thunder fans, given that the Thunder own the Clippers pick, because it could end a disaster and it could end the Thunder getting a top 10 pick in the draft because Kawhi's hurt and James Harden has regressed and Derrick Jones Jr. is not who you think he is and on down the list. So there's just too many question marks to really feel passionately one way or the other. I am certain though that, as you mentioned, there is a gap. Like this is a clear cutoff of like the Clippers are better than the Spurs, Jazz, Blazers without question. The question is how much better are they going to be win total wise, because we just don't know who's going to play. So with all that being said, with all the data points that we have, I would have to go 40 or below win total. So I think that 40 would be a great mark for them, but that's still an under. And so I just would have to go under with the Clippers and move on from there.
Yeah. And for what it's worth, that 9 through 12, I think they're all going to be separated by half game. Like that's going to be, you're going to see low to mid 40s, I think, from that maybe 8 to 12 range.
So here's where the run in Vegas starts, like the clump together in Vegas starts. So we've seen, multiple games separate teams to this point, but the Lakers, Warriors, and Rockets all have a 43.5 win total by FanDuel. That's 3 more than the Clippers, and that puts them all in a tier by themselves, 2 below the Pelicans. So of this 3-headed monster, Rockets, Warriors, Lakers, give me your order of confidence that they're going to hit the over.
I take Lakers, Rockets, Warriors in that order. Is that crazy?
I don't think it's crazy. I think that LeBron certainly seems reinvigorated after the Olympics, and you heard him today talk about how he's so excited for training camp, and it's setting in with him how cool this is to play with Bronny. And I know that there's a lot of talking heads talking about Bronny, but one thing I think that it does, without question of what's happening on the court, is it gets LeBron with that kind of injection of energy, injection of life again. And not that he didn't have it last year, it was awesome last year. But anything you can do to make him more comfortable and make him want to play more night in and night out, make him feel good in the 82-game season in year 20,000, you're going to want to do for LeBron James. And so if he comes into this differently, AD comes into it healthy, I would for sure have them as my top team because I trust LeBron and AD to make this work more than I trust Jalen Green, Sengun, and the Rockets, and more than I trust Steph Curry and some guys. Like Draymond's still there in name only, really. And then you have to worry about Buddy Hield. You have to worry about what's left of that roster. Brandon Podziemski, of course, had a stellar rookie season, but what does he look like now taking the mantle from Klay Thompson? So I would have to go with the Lakers one as well. And then for me, it comes down to Rockets Warriors. Warriors have a proven guy in Steph Curry, whereas the Rockets, we'll see what they can do in terms of win total and who's proven to be able to pass the torch. I think that the Rockets have better depth and better top to bottom roster in the sense of just like from 1 to 15. They have more guys in that 5 to 15 range than the Warriors do. but the Warriors by far have the best guy in Steph Curry, and arguably the best guy on this list right now. So it's going to be difficult, but because it's the regular season and because depth's going to matter, I feel like I would have to agree with your list of Lakers, Rockets, Warriors.
Yeah, no doubt. And I think like the Warriors, I feel so bad for Steph. I mean, if you're going strictly win total, I think you're kind of betting on, something, some type of, I mean, he's gonna make some type of leap, but like some extravagant leap from Podziemski. Like I don't know that I view him the same way Warriors brass views him. And so like I don't know. I think that's what you're banking on for their win total. And then with the Rockets, like they're young and fun, but they're more competent than most young fun teams. I mean, they went 500 last year. Tari Eason missed a chunk of time. Thompson never really got his footing. Like there are things they have to build on. And Reed Shepherd looks like one of the more rookies that's primed to go. So I don't know. I like them. I'm confident Jalen Green could have a decent season, a comeback season. I like the pieces they have set. They have probably more to work with than they should. Obviously, their ceiling is questionable with their order of scoring options. But I do think as far as win total goes, I got them square in the middle between those three teams. So
yeah, I just think that it comes down to pods. And I mean, if you hear the Warriors talk, they want him to take like 10 threes a night. And he was great last year, but that's a massive step.
Yeah, it's just crazy. I don't know that he's an all-star either. We got guys now that are going to be, going to have really good careers. J-Dub, you don't know when he's going to make an all-star game, and he's looked like a really good player to this point. So you got guys that are probably going to be getting snubbed for years. I don't know that potentially could be an all-star. Now, can he be like a all-star level role player, like a someone who's so good in their role, like Derek White? Possibly, maybe, probably, but I don't know about all-star and 10 threes a game. The expectations are getting a little crazy. I'm starting to really feel bad for Steph because obviously we saw he still has some juice left.
That's right. And so with them all being at 43.5, Warriors over under?
Over, not by much.
Okay.
Matter of fact, no. Hey.
I'm going under.
I'll not by much, but I'll give them under. Yeah, I'll give them under.
Rockets,
I'm going over. Rockets, I'm going over. Lakers, I'm going over for sure.
Okay. I'm gonna.
What do you have Rockets as? Give me the exact total wins.
I love 43 for the Rockets. Like that's a 3-game improvement for the Rockets. Have they done anything to get more than three wins better in this Western Conference? Like, think of who's gotten better in the West. The Grizzlies have gotten a lot better. Like the Thunder have gotten a lot better.
That's fair. No, that's fair. And to be different from you, I'm gonna go 44. So give me the over.
Okay, I'll go 43 for the Rockets. And for the Lakers, I am going to go over. And this is going to be just the possibility of cold takes exposed exceptionally hard because the Lakers have literally done nothing this offseason. Absolutely nothing except for hire a podcaster to be head coach, which you and I can do. So it's just a banking on LeBron. It's a banking on AD. Yeah. And it could look stupid right out of the gate if certain things happen. But I feel more comfortable going over with LeBron and AD than I do with the Rockets, who are unproven, and I do with just Steph Curry, because I love Podziemski, but again, you're asking a lot from him in just year two that I don't know if he's ready for. So shout out Lindy Waters. Maybe he can help the Warriors as well. Coming up, let's get to the upper echelon of the West. We're back on the Locked On Thunder podcast, on the Locked On Podcast Network, your teams every day. Folks, subscribe to Locked On Thunder anywhere you get your podcast from. Apple, Spotify, YouTube, all the good stuff. Check out Joel Lorenzi at the Oklahoman and on Twitter at JXLorenzi. I'm Rylan Stiles at Rylan_Stiles on Twitter and on Thunder on SI. So, Joel, we have some more Western Conference win totals. We're almost to the top of the West. Still a couple teams to go after, though. Pelicans, 45.5. Where are you at with the Pelicans? They brought in DeJounte Murray. It's a lot of fun. Brandon Ingram, still a question mark. What's going to happen with him leading up to the deadline? Where are you at with the Pelicans?
I'm not, bro. I don't know how well documented this is. I'm not a big believer in the Pelicans operation in the summer they had. Like, I'm not You lose Najee Marshall. I'm not as much of a DeJounte Murray guy as maybe people are in New Orleans now that he's there. He's as far as the regular season goes, he'll probably get you a couple more wins, but I'm not high on their postseason ceiling, is what I should be saying. If I take over, I think they still win less games than they did a season ago, which was like 50 or 49. I think 49 is what they won last year. You said their over under was what?
The Pelicans over under is 45.5.
I mean, damn, I kind of want to give them 45 or 46. I'm not. This is not one I really want to. It's not that I don't want to touch it, but it's one I don't really care for. I'll give them the over. Give them 46 wins.
I'm going to give them the over as well. Skinny Zion. I mean, this team is going to be fun in the regular season. And like you mentioned, I don't know how built they are for the postseason, but I only dislike their front court depth. We'll see if Yves can make a step forward as a rookie, because I think that we kind of got swept up in the Chet Lively rookie postseason. It's incredibly hard to produce in the postseason as a rookie as a center. Like, that is one of the hardest positions to hit the ground running at. And so eventually, like, the lightning in the bottle is going to run out. And like, you look at the context of Chet Holmgren, like, we forgot because he got hurt for a year. This was a guy billed as a unicorn generational talent. Derek Lively's playing alongside Luka Doncic, who can make anyone look good. He could spoon feed you buckets and you're 5'2". So I just think that with Yves Missi,
he's talking to you guys, not me.
You're 5'2", Joel. With Yves Missi, you're asking a little bit too much of him. And so we'll see what they do to counteract that as the season progresses. But still, for the regular season, I'm in on the over. And it brings me to the Kings, where I'm in an immediate under. Kings 46.5. They got DeRozan. That's fun. But I think that they'll win 46 or less games.
No, okay, you know what? We're gonna have to agree here too. I think I'll go under 2, and I do think the Pelicans will win more regular season games than them. So 46. I mean, I took the over with the Pelicans, but I said 46. I think if 46 means they win more games than the Kings, then sure. But it's probably not likely. So I'll give them a couple more wins, maybe like 48 or something. The Kings. Yeah, I mean, what do you think of? I don't think I've heard your definitive thoughts on DeRozan and the fit there.
I think it's just whatever. Like, I think that they'll be a fun team to watch at 9 p.m., but they don't have any realistic staying power. They don't have any realistic fear of like a postseason threat. I just don't think they're all that talented top to bottom, with a lot of glaring holes defensively. I just don't think that they're going to be in the toughest conference we've ever seen. I don't think they're going to be a team to be feared. And so I'm going to go under. And it's not as though they're going to win 40 games. I still think they'll win 46, 45, 44, but that's still an under. And so I'm going to go under on the Kings. I think that the Pelicans are better than them.
Right. And I think let me not say that, but I do think them and the Lakers are right there. I think they're closer to the Lakers than they maybe are the Pelicans. I'll give the Pelicans that. The Pelicans, at least, I would maybe want to say, are over these two. I mean, maybe the Lakers could win the most games out of all three teams. I know the Lakers didn't do much, but I mean, I'm kind of in the belief that, if AD plays as many games as he did last year, if LeBron truly is reinvigorated, I mean, clearly they have to understand this juncture of LeBron's career and what's at stake here, and father times is something. So I don't know. I'm not overly thrilled with the Kings either. I do think they can make DeMar work in a weird, niche, nasty way, and that he'll probably win them a couple games. But as far as postseason, the problem is I'm looking at a lot of these teams through a postseason lens, because right now that's all that matters with this conference. And so that's why I'm a little down on them, but I think they can win regular season games. I'd still take under, but I do think there's they'll be in that mix for the play-in for sure. And I could see a path to them getting 8. I can.
Yeah, a lot of these are unders because everybody's going to beat up on everybody. Like, you can't have a boatload of overs and then say that's going to be the most competitive conference there is. Like, it's going to come naturally with playing quality teams night in and night out. And so I think that the Kings are going to be a victim of that a little bit. Now we have my Phoenix Suns. The Phoenix Suns with Booker, Beal, Durant, Tyus Jones, Budenholzer. The Suns got their guys in the draft. They released this War Room video where they were targeting Oso. They were targeting Dunn. Targeting Dunn.
Oh, you were salivating over that, huh?
I'm anti Dunn. I'll admit that I'm anti Ryan Dunn. I will. Suns 47.5 over under. What do you got, Joel?
Over. Give me 48.
Welcome
wins.
to the dark side, Joel. My Phoenix Suns. We're going over on my Phoenix Suns. Let's go over together on the Suns.
What's the win count though? I got them at 48. It's not a obnoxious over. It's 48. It's a hair.
Yeah, I'm gonna go 49, perhaps 50. I think that they're at 49 with a game that you look at and say, if this fluke shot goes in or out, they're at 50 wins. So I have them right there, a couple wins above their skis with the Suns.
You know what? I'm not on the Suns train.
It's my Suns. Let's go.
Right, but I'm not as. I don't think when we had that conversation, it wasn't for the sake of argument. I was generally like I was confused by your excitement for them, but I mean they still can win regular season games. Again, a lot of these teams I talk about them through a postseason lens. Not a big fan of them. You were talking about they gonna win a series, and then after that another series, and what happens? Nonsense. But they're still a good enough team. Devin Booker can easily, I think, is probably a dark horse. I don't know that we talked about him, but he's probably a dark horse and being on the MVP ballot at least, having a great season. KD is still KD. Tyus Jones is a sound point guard. I'm not on the Suns train, but I do think they will win enough games to make the over by a hair.
Well, to be fair, Joel, you give some of these Homer media members a vote, and if you would get like Usman Jang on the ballot. So, but yeah, I do think that Devin Booker
You're
will be on the
talking
ballot.
about yourself, right?
Oh yeah, sure. Coming up next is the Memphis Grizzlies. Same over under as the Suns. Our Memphis Grizzlies. We've been on the Memphis train since the draft, and Vegas is on our side here. So I don't think that this is any longer a hot take. 47.5. Are you confident to go over though? Because as much as I love Memphis, winning near 50 games in the West is going to be tough to do. And is there any sort of gelling here with Edie and with John with this squad?
Yeah, no. The 50 win group is going to be special. I think I can see them at 48 wins too. It would be a slight over. They still have as much as we've said this a bunch of times, as high as we are on them, they still got things to figure out with their front court, the center spot specifically. Ja came out like a firing gun last year. Like he was great, but like you have to consider the span of a season. Their pecking order in terms of scoring options. There's just so many question marks, not enough question marks where I wouldn't count them as, one of the better teams in the conference. But there are question marks to where you get into the nitty gritty of teams, going win by win, who places where in that top 5-ish, top 6-ish. Like these questions matter. So I think I'd take the slight over at 48 or 49, but 50, you're right. 50 is going to be exclusive. I don't know that I have them right there just yet.
Yeah, I'm going to go slight over as well. I think that Memphis is a team that can really dominate in the regular season, that can navigate this very well. Isn't going to take a ton of nights off either. I love Taylor Jenkins as a head coach. I think that this is an over, but it's not something crazy. I don't think that we're going to see crazy records this season. But that brings us to the top 4. And Vegas has the same top 4 as we do. Dallas, Denver, Minnesota, Thunder. Let's start with Dallas. They're the only team of that group that does not have a 50-plus over-under. Theirs is at 49.5. So if you say over, they've got to win at least 50. Will the Dallas Mavericks win 50 games this year? That's the question.
I'm taking over. They won 50 last year, and there were clear periods. I mean, you can speculate all you want about how they treat the regular season and whatever. I think there's incentive to treat the regular season differently this season, even among the bloodbath. I mean, you probably want better positioning in these standings. I think this could be Luka Doncic's best season yet. It's the 3rd season you'll have. You'll have another season with Luka and Kyrie playing together. That matters. Derek Lively will be in his 2nd season. That matters. I don't know why I'm on Twitter during this part of the season or this part of the calendar year, but you go on Twitter, you see all these conversations about Derek Lively. I gotta say, like, these conversations are like maddening, bro. Like, I think that we've lost the plot. I got to say, I'm not going to go on a Rylan rant here, but we've lost the plot with Derek Lively, who was a rookie last year, who went through some things last year, like serious life issues last year. And he played great, man. I mean, the bottom line is him and Luka as a pick and roll duo will be one of the best pick and roll duos for as long as they play, I imagine. He's just that level of threat in the role. He's got that type of frame. He understands angles. He understands what it takes to play with Luka Doncic. And so the conversation, we've lost it with him. He's going to be great this year, I think. There is no sophomore slump for, I think, his skill set. It's really hard to do that. He's a great defender. Could he add a shot? I don't know. That doesn't really matter, though. I think you put another year under his belt. You have the summer they had, and they win at least 50 games, I think. Now, I don't say that to say, oh, they're going to win 55 games. But I don't. If I saw that at the end of the year, I don't know that my eyes would pop out of my head. Now, I don't think they're going to win 55 games. I think it'll be closer to 51 or 50, maybe 52. But that's the over.
So I'm going to also go over for this reason. We've talked before about the Mavericks, and they might not take it seriously. And Jason Kidd's not a good regular season coach. He's a great postseason coach. Last season, the Mavericks were the definition of disarray. I mean, they came into the year with one team. They left the deadline with another team. They went to the NBA Finals. And at post-deadline, they were playing at a clip that would have gotten the 1 seed. Like they were awesome post-deadline. And so you have to imagine that this season comes with a level of stability that they never had last season. And so just by that, they're going to win 50 games. And is it going to be, again, like you mentioned, a huge over? No. I would be shocked if Dallas cracks the top 3, not because of talent, but because of just what they value and what they're going to focus on and how they treat the regular season as an organization. And I still harken back to, if you're Dallas and you went as a 5 seed to the finals with Luka hurt all postseason long, I would do everything in my power to make sure Luka's not hurt at the postseason mark, because you know what he brings to the table whenever he's healthy, or even whenever he's like somewhat healthy, because he wasn't healthy at all last year and went to the finals. So with that, I think that might hinder them a little bit in the win total, but they're still going to hit 50 games. It's impressive that they hit this mark last year. They're going to do it again this year. And last year's West was incredibly tough as well. So like they faced the tough West already. They faced all the backlash of like, there were points of last season where people were saying that the Mavs should fire Jason Kidd, and they won 50 games at the end of it. And they're not going to have to deal with a whole roster turnover swap at the deadline or things like that. So I would still go over for the Dallas Mavericks. Now, the Denver Nuggets, a team where you can find some takes out there, Joel, where the people are fearful of the Denver Nuggets, and they think that they've lost a step and that they've regressed, but their win total in Vegas is still 51.5. What's your take on Denver?
Yeah, I'd take slight over. Obviously, they're not going to win 57 games like they did a year ago, but I think I would be crazy after all Nikola Jokic has shown me, the best player in the world, to not take the over. I mean, they can win 52 games. They can win 5 less games than they did a year ago, no matter who they lost. Obviously, when we talk about, they lost a step, we're talking about postseason contention, championship contention, because that's where they've put themselves. Now, I don't know about Jamal Murray. He looked like he had the suds in the Olympics, but he also wasn't playing alongside Nikola Jokic. Like that's the framing of it, right? We don't know who Jamal Murray is without Nikola Jokic. That's what came into question this year. I don't know if that carries into the regular season. He can be back to his normal ways in the regular season. Even if he's not, it's hard to not. Nikola Jokic has done regular season things to this point where it's hard to really place any doubt alongside his name. So 52 wins, I don't think is crazy for them. I want the over.
I think this is a classic case of KISS. Keep it simple, stupid. This is regular season win totals. So for getting your thoughts on if they're going to win the finals or not, I'm going to read you these numbers, and they're going to mean something at the end. 80, 73, 75, 80, 73, 72, 74, 69, and 79. That's how many games that Jokic has played each season of his career. This is the best player in the world who makes everybody around him better and consistently plays in the modern NBA. They're going to win games in the regular season. I don't care about the bench. I don't care about Russell Westbrook coming in. I don't care about anything that they've done this offseason or have not done this offseason. All I care about is I'm going to get near or above 80 games from Nikola Jokic, the best player in the world, and they're going to win games. They're going to rack up wins. They have an amazing home court advantage legitimately with the altitude and with all that comes with that territory. They're going to win games. They're going to be near the top of the West, and then we can reevaluate things in our playoff preview about what they look like at that point. But as far as it goes in the regular season, this is a team where I would feel very comfortable locking in and over when all they have to do is win 52 games. They can regress by 5 whole games, and you still win money. So I'm going to go with Denver in the over, just as you are. Now we've got Minnesota, the number 2 team in the West, according to Vegas. Minnesota, 52.5. Does Ant Edwards get this team to 53 in the tough Western Conference?
Yeah, over. I mean, they won 56 last year. If you're accounting for the bloodbath that the West is, and that's a 3-game swing, I'm fine with saying they win 53 games. Again, we can keep it simple, stupid. Ant is special. The Timberwolves still have their core pretty much intact. And they're a good regular season and postseason team. They're just a good team. It would be hard for me to say they don't or they lose 4 more games than they did a year ago, regardless of the Western. Let's call it the Western Conference tax.
Yeah, it's an over for me, easy over for me. Again, you look at what they did last year and how many games that they can afford to lose that they didn't lose last year in order to still hit the over. I love Ant Edwards. I think that the hype is real. I think that they have this team really put together, especially for the regular season. My only question about Minnesota is the off-court stuff of like whenever the noise gets loud, because we know how this is going to work. You're going to have preview pods soon. Then you're going to have the season start. Then you're going to have December roll around, and we're going to need new things to talk about. And it's going to be, well, the tax bill's so high, they can't keep this team together. This is their last hurrah. And when that stuff starts to happen, it can either tear a team apart or it can really galvanize them and make them play closer together. Which direction does that go? I think that they have enough leaders in that locker room to make sure that it goes the correct way. I think they have a really good head coach. I'm going to go over on Minnesota, which brings us to the Oklahoma City Thunder. The second highest win total in the NBA, only behind Boston, at 56.5 wins. They would have to match their win total from a year ago or improve to hit the over. So tough to do, honestly, while integrating a lot of new parts with Hartenstein and Caruso. Over under on the Oklahoma City Thunder.
I'm really close to this line. I know this won't be popular, but I think it could go either way. I think they can win 56. But personally, I'm going to take the over, but I'm only going to give them 57. I know something. I think if they won 60 games at the end of the season, I probably wouldn't bat an eye because they are that talented. But I do think that in the early months, they're going to be, experimenting. Like, what they prioritize to start the season. They're going to be trying lineups. They're going to be giving guys chances. You're seeing ooze minutes. You're seeing Chet and I Heart. You're seeing all these things being thrown at the chalkboard just to see what works for later down the line, because that's what they prioritize is the postseason and seeing what works and what's sustainable. So I think with all the experimentation and everything that goes into the early season, sure, they might take a couple losses. I saw you and Crane talking about this, that they're a team that obviously they don't lose games in clumps. I think this year could be just like that, where they're not going on long losing streaks, but they'll get their share of, losses. Like I don't think they're invincible to the regular season, and it's the tax, the Western Conference tax. So I give them 57. Nothing gaudy, but I mean that's still respectable with all the over unders we talked about. I mean the next best team is winning 53 games, so I think that's more than respectable after a 3-way tie last year to have a 4-game gap.
Yeah, I think that this is something where you can worry yourself to death about anything in life, Joel. I mean, anything in the world you can fixate on and worry about. Yes, there are question marks of like this could be a year where you're trying to wholesale change some moving parts. Where like last year you had a guy who started 218 consecutive games. This year there is questions about what the starting lineup will be. We can have our predictions, but save your predictions, bring your assumptions, whatever Sam Presti and company say. I forgot what band it was that said that, but some band that Presti listens to, which Sam Presti, good music taste as well, but it wasn't a Grateful Dead song, so I forgot what it was. Now, at the end of the day, what I keep drawing back to take the over, just like you have, just like Joe Mazzato has, they were experimenting and messing with lineups and arguably playing lineups that they maybe perhaps knew was not their best chance to win. They did not do the Tom Thibodeau thing of like only playing 8 guys from October till April. They were doing that last year and winning 57 games in the West with worse pieces, frankly, than they have right now. So like they've improved those pieces to tweak with and to mix and match with. And I think that by nature means that they can handle it once again. Like if the roster has gotten better top to bottom, we can both agree on that. Then doing what they did last year in terms of like rotation and gelling and mixing rotations, it should not have a dire effect on them either. It's not the end of the world if they win 56 games and hit the under, but I do think that this team's good enough to hit the over. So I'll hit the over. I don't think it really matters, honestly. I think that all that matters is, do you look at this team at the end of the year, no matter win-loss column, and say, are they more in position to win a championship right now than they were a year ago? I think that question will be answered with a resounding yes, no matter win-loss total. That's what really matters. But we're talking about win-loss totals. I'll still take the over because I think that they can navigate the tweaks and the integration of players very easily because they're so talented. I mean, they have more guys than you know what to do with. Like, this is a team that was already, since the dawn of time with Mark, I mean, like, since this team was a 22-win team, Mark has been playing 10, 11, 12 guys a night. And each season, you've seen the 10, 11, 12 guys get better and better and better. And this season, you legitimately have 10, 11, 12 guys who you're not having to squint to want to watch. You're like, geez, man, how are we going to play all these guys in Oklahoma City? Like, how are you going to get all these guys on the floor? Well, you've set the foundation of what to expect and have these players prepared to play in these weird spurts, play on and off, any given night. So with all that being said, I'm taking the over as well, but I don't really care necessarily about their regular season win total. And I don't think it'll be the 62, 63 win mark. I don't even know if it'll be 60, but I think that they're going to go 57 or more out west. So that's why I'll take the over on the OKC Thunder, Joel.
Yeah, and I don't know that it'll be 60 either. I think the difference between, them winning 57 games versus, 60 plus, after everything you said is you also have to factor in injuries because they had the injury sliders turned off last year. Like they were really fortunate last year. I'm not wishing that on them or any team for that matter, but we have to be realistic. I imagine even with the way this team preps, like there will be some untimely injuries, which is like another Western Conference tax. Like we just have to factor that in because it wasn't a factor last year, probably at all. I mean, the most injury-prone player they had last year was maybe Jalen Williams, and he was getting ankle sprains. Like that's not a big deal, and he was out maybe a couple games at a time, maybe less than a handful of times last year. So I don't know if they had any significant, not that I can remember.
I mean, they had that 5-game stretch with Shea's hamstring where it was weird. They had J-Dub step on a camera guy, but yeah, I mean, it was extraordinary injury luck a year ago, and we'll see if that happens again for them this season. Obviously, we hope that all 30 teams stay healthy for the 82-game season, but we'll see how that goes. I think that next week our Boston over/under will be different than the Thunder's over/under, where it's like an automatic over probably, and that comes from what we'll say next week of this Thunder team has 3 teams you can beat up on. Go back to the first 10 minutes of the show. There are 3 teams you can beat up on. The East has 10 or more teams that if you're a Boston or Thunder caliber of roster, you can just obliterate if you're focused. If this Thunder team was in the East, they would win 60-plus games easily. They're in the West, though, and so that's the West tax.
No, facts. We're going to call it that moving forward, the West tax, and I hope people have this pod for reference because when we say West tax, I don't want anybody to be confused. The West tax is going to be getting slapped on everything.
The West tax, my sons. Joel, we found ways to make the offseason memorable. So for that, I'm thankful. Find him again on Twitter at JXLorenzi. Go to the Oklahoman whenever he decides to write. Joel, thanks for joining us, and we'll be back again next week. Until then, be good and be good to